Way back in 1932, a single document was signed that would go on to shape India's social fabric for the next 100 years. It's called the Poona Pact, and it's a gripping story of high-stakes negotiation, clashing ideas, and a compromise that, believe it or not, still fuels some of India's most heated debates today.
So, why are we talking about a 93-year-old agreement? Because the Poona Pact is so much more than a historical footnote. It's basically the DNA of India's entire reservation system. And today, on its 93rd anniversary, we're going to unpack its incredibly controversial legacy. All right, Section 1. Why the Poona Pact matters.
You see, this pact isn't some dusty old document. It's the direct ancestor of India's modern affirmative action policies. Its principles are right there at the center of the conversation every single time there's talk of a caste census or when the Supreme Court makes a ruling on reservations. And the central question from 1932 is still being fought over today. Was this a necessary victory for unity, or was it a profound betrayal of a community's political freedom? Okay, let's get to the heart of it. Section 2, Ambedkar versus Gandhi.
To really get the pact, you have to understand the two giants at the center of this storm, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi. And this wasn't just a political disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of worldviews. Ambedkar, coming from the oppressed community himself, saw political power as the only path to liberation. He used the term Dalit, which means broken people, to assert a history of oppression. Gandhi, on the other hand, was focused on social reform to keep Hindu society united. He coined the term Harijan, or children of God, because his goal was integration, not political separation.
And Ambedkar's philosophy, it was crystal clear and totally uncompromising. For him, waiting for the upper castes to have a change of heart was just a fantasy. He believed the depressed classes had to seize the machinery of the state for themselves. Power wasn't just an option, it was everything. But Gandhi, he saw this from a completely different angle. He was worried that creating a separate political identity would just ghettoize the depressed classes, limiting their ambitions to what he called a measly share of seats. His vision was all about complete integration, where they could compete for any position, not just the ones reserved for them. So, this huge philosophical divide, how did it actually play out in the real world? Well, that brings us to Section 3, a fight for representation. It all came down to this one really powerful political tool, the separate electorate. So what is that? It's a system where, for certain designated seats, only members of that specific community can vote. In this case, it meant only Dalit voters could elect Dalit representatives. This made those representatives accountable only to their own community. And the difference here is stark. It's absolutely crucial. With a separate electorate, accountability is direct. A Dalit representative answers only to Dalit voters. Simple. But in a joint electorate, which is the system India has today, the candidate is from the community, sure, but everyone in that area gets to vote. And this was Ambedkar's nightmare scenario, that the upper caste majority would always control the outcome, essentially electing a puppet who wouldn't dare challenge their interests. Now, Gandhi's opposition to this was fierce, and it really came from three big fears. First, he believed it would permanently splinter Hindu society, creating a formal split. Second, he saw it as a classic British divide-and-rule tactic. And third, with Hindu-Muslim tensions on the rise, he was deeply worried that splitting the Hindu vote would weaken their overall political standing. This disagreement wasn't just a polite debate. It was about to explode into a national crisis. Section 4, Fast unto Death. Okay, so picture this. It's 1932. The British government actually sides with Ambedkar and grants separate electorates. Gandhi, from his prison cell in Yerrawada jail, responds with his ultimate weapon, a fast unto death. The crisis unfolded with terrifying speed. For 4 days, the entire nation held its breath as leaders scrambled to find a compromise, which led directly to the signing of the Poona Pact. 6 days. That's it. In just 6 days, the immense weight of Gandhi's life and the future of a nation fell squarely on B.R. Ambedkar's shoulders. And to truly understand this pact, you have to see it from Ambedkar's perspective. He didn't see this as a negotiation between equals. He saw Gandhi's fast as, in his own words, an extreme form of coercion. It was a kind of political and emotional blackmail that completely forced his hand. He had to choose between a right he believed was essential for his people and the life of a man the entire nation revered. So the pact was signed. The fast was broken. But what happened next? What did it all mean in the long run? That's Section 5, the pact's lasting legacy.
So, Ambedkar conceded. He gave up the demand for separate electorates. But what did he get in return? Well, the major trade-off was a huge increase in representation. In exchange for accepting the joint electorate system, he secured more than double the number of reserved seats for the depressed classes in provincial legislatures. They jumped all the way from 71 to 148. And get this agreement wasn't just some temporary fix to end the crisis. It literally became the blueprint for affirmative action in the Indian Constitution. The system of joint electorates with reserved seats, hammered out under all that pressure in 1932, is enshrined in Articles 330 and 332 and remains the law of the land today. And that brings us right back to where we started, to the big, unresolved question that hangs over this whole story. Was the Poona Pact a pragmatic compromise that held the nation together at a fragile time? Or was it the moment that a promise of true political autonomy for India's most marginalized people was traded away under duress? 93 years later, India is still grappling with the answer.